First shooting of the Remington 700 Ultra Muzzleloader. William Hovey Smith, 2015. I'm the author of Backyard Deer Hunting, and here we take some initial shootings with Remington's new muzzleloading rifle. This is Hovey Smith, the Backyard Sportsman. Towards the front of the table is the new Remington Ultimate Muzzleloading Rifle in .50 caliber. It's a beautiful gun, stainless steel, laminated stock, and a single shot, even though it is a bolt action and does have a magazine well. We'll get around what's in that in a little bit. Now behind it is an older iteration of a Remington muzzleloader. Now this particular gun was actually made in Spain, and it is a swinging block muzzleloader. Boom! Something similar to the old Snyder. At any rate, it was on the market for a few years. Now, even before this one, almost 2 decades ago, there was a Remington 700 ML, which was a fairly simple modification of the Remington 700 bolt-action rifle to be a single-shot muzzleloader. This is a photo of an original 700 ML with a Georgia wild turkey that I took with a saboted bullet. Otherwise, except for the ramrod, it looked very much like any other Remington 700 rifle. Now, the Ultimate Muzzleloader differs in several important respects. One, it has a much thicker barrel profile. Yeah, I mean, this is a hunk of steel back here. It is also proofed for 4 pellets. Yeah, I mean, this is a 200 grain charge. Now, if you shoot a 200 grain charge out of any gun, you cannot handle much bullet weight. So, what they have done is arrange for barns to make solid copper 150 grain bullets that are saboted projectiles and also have a protected point on them for longer range accuracy. Okay? And what else did they do? The problem with the first iteration of the Remington 700 ML was the bolt action. Gases escaping from here got back into the bolt. And I don't know if you have ever disassembled a Remington bolt, but they are SOBs. And so it took some knuckle busting and trouble to get these things apart. But nonetheless, these things had to be cleaned after each firing session because black powder fouling would get all back in here and around the firing pin and springs and such. Okay. In the Ultimate ML, they're using a brass cartridge case with a primer in it to actually fire the charge. Now this will give a better gas seal. It may not be absolutely perfect, but it will be much better than the old steel insert was. So this should prevent so much cleaning of this bolt and may eliminate it altogether if you use relatively clean burning pellets such as Hodgson's 777s and Red Hots, which we will do. In fact, the photos that they show apparently feature Hodgson's 777 pellets from the look of them. Okay? So that's the load we're going to try to shoot. Now it is getting late in Georgia's deer season. It is the 14th today. Deer season goes out tomorrow. And I'm just getting the gun in the house. So I'm going to take it out and we're going to work up some loads right quick and see if we can get it out in the woods tonight. I don't know if we will be able to do that or not, but we're certainly going to try. but it's a good looking gun. Now, if this thing shoots a 200 grain charge, shouldn't it be heavier than this gun? Yes, it should. And it is, by 3/4 of a pound. No. That's not too much if you're shooting this much powder and slinging that much lead. I don't know, quite frankly, if I'm ever going to shoot more than one 200 grain charge out of this gun. We shall see. Because I don't need them to kill my deer. I don't shoot at 300 yards. Although many people do. If you're out on a bean field somewhere, yeah, you may have 300 yard shots. In that case, it would make certainly sense to put a good scope on it. I don't have time to do that. I'm going to have to make do with the iron sights, which are adequate for my usual close range shooting. Just 2 days ago, I shot a deer, for example, offhand at about 100 yards using open sight. So yeah, I can do the deed if I'm called upon to do it. But we hope to get this gun prepped and shot and sighted in and in the woods today. Well, this is a 200 grain load with a 150 grain bullet, and we're going to see if I ever want to shoot more than one of these things. So we've got a target down there at 50 yards to get started with, which may be too far. We will see. It is commonly assumed that rifles are sighted in at the factory. Believe me, they ain't. No, you've got to sight in your rifle, guys. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. That is considerable recoil, and that's more than I want to shoot. So I'm going to be using 150 grain loads in this gun, not a 200. We're now about to shoot a 3-pellet load. Yeah, it loads pretty positively. If you just get this cartridge case in the loading trough, it does okay. Now with that first load, there was some primer pullback in the cartridge case. I mean, it sticks out now above the case itself, which is an indication to me of higher pressures than I would actually like to see on a regular basis. So let's see what the 150 load does. Also a fair amount of recoil. Not as much as the first, but yeah, you certainly know you shot something. All right. And we're going to make our adjustment on the sights. And see what we do. Okay, that looked real good when it went. I've now fired 2 shots at the target using the 150 grain load at 50 yards. And they tell me that I still need to make upward adjustments, which I've just made. Now when you're swabbing the barrel, use alcohol and the rod that comes with the gun, and that gives you a better fit. Okay, once down. That patch was a little loose, so I'm going to fold it to get a slightly tighter bite. Okay, yeah, that's better. And this considerably aids your loading. These guns foul in a hurry. The 3 pellets. Bullet, short starter. See, it goes down fairly easily. I mean, if you didn't wipe you would have some serious problems here, guy. Okay, seats all the way down well. So now we're ready for a shot. Move all this powder out of the way. Now, when you drop this down to the loading trough, that's pretty good actually. That's all you need to do. Okay, that was a good looking, good feeling shot. What I have found is that the iron sights do not have enough adjustment to allow a 0 with a 150 grain charge. So it looks like you're pretty well stuck with a 200 grain charge with this bullet weight. So I've loaded 200 again, and we'll see if we can put one near the center of the target. Wow. Now I guarantee you that ain't comfortable.
We're now 3 hours into the hunt on the last day of Georgia's deer season.
Well, it has changed to a slow, steady rain. When the rain started, there were a few shots around, as deer were apparently moving to find cover. And I think I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and come down from this stand and pack it up, and then go and sit in one of my covered built-up stands and await developments there. We have our tree lounge ready to roll now, and what we're going to do is put that on our back and walk out as quietly as we possibly can, because who knows, we may even pick up a deer on the way. Well, we walked around a bit and saw nothing, and I stashed my stand in a place where I can get it easily with the truck. And so we're going to finish the day looking out over this food plot. Now, actually there's a fallow field in front of me, and I have about a 300-yard shot from one end of this to the other, but it's pretty chancy. And well, if I had good optics and was well prepared and stable, etc., 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 yeah, we might put a target down there and give it a try and see what could actually happen, and probably will at some stage. But just didn't have time to do all that. So right now we're waiting and hoping that we'll get an animal in here that's something like 100 yards, so I can take it with this iron-sighted gun.
Night fell, and the only deer that I saw was one that blew at me on my way out. So we just did not get anything with the Remington Ultra Muzzleloader in our day-and-a-half hunt. Now, following on some pictures, now these are the markings on the new Remington Ultimate Muzzleloader. And here is what the loading trough looks like. And yeah, that does really work to guide the cartridge in. And as I mentioned in the magazine, well, it's where you keep your extra prime cartridges. I am the author of prize-winning books, including Extreme Muzzleloading, as well as Hunting Big and Small Game with Muzzleloading Pistols. Now, these last two titles are out as ebooks. Forthcoming will be my new book, Profit, which will tell you how to make $1 million or $1 billion business using your own creativity. For more information on my books, blogs, and nearly 400 videos, go to my website, www.hoviesmith.com. Good hunting and good eating from the outdoors. Goodbye, and God bless.